From the studios of KENW on the campus of Eastern New Mexico University, it's You Should Know, featuring the people and events of Eastern New Mexico and West Texas.
Welcome to You Should Know. I'm your host, Evelyn Ledbetter, and today I have a guest that I know pretty well. He's one of our students here at KENW and has worked on You Should Know, Josh Gonzalez. So welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me, Evelyn.
Oh, for sure. We've talked a lot over the last year. You started here at the station a year ago, August, right?
Yes, in August, I applied here for the job for the news anchor position, and I was blessed enough to get that job.
Well, and the same with us. We've been fortunate to have you here, and we're not going to let you graduate. We're just going to keep you.
Right.
So through our conversations and things, I've learned quite a bit about you, but basically we're going to focus on a lot about FFA and your involvement in that. But first, let's get a little bit of background information as far as, tell me where you grew up and where you were born.
So I'm from a small town. It's called Peralta. It's in New Mexico. It's probably about 30 minutes south of Albuquerque, if you don't know where that's at. Kind of a rural farm town type of vibe. I got my neighbors, they're cows and fields.
The same as I have.
Right. I grew up farming and stuff of that nature. My family has a ranch in northern New Mexico. So, I was outdoors a lot up there, and it's not a working ranch anymore. But it's still just a fun family ranch to go up there, hunt, just do recreational activities, go hiking.
Very nice. I know a lot of the times when people mention somewhere close to Albuquerque, you think that it's all urban, but there's a lot of rural areas. And you kind of gave me an idea. Close to the largest town closest to you would be Cuba, right out on the ranch part of it.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of about maybe 20, 30 minutes north of Cuba.
Okay. And siblings?
I do have one brother. He was not an FFA like me, though. He took more of the sports realm. He was in track, football. But just grew up with one brother there and, working the farm with my dad, baling hay and stuff of that nature.
Well, good. And I think everybody, they either have an aptitude they enjoy outside or they don't, and you happen to be one that does.
Yeah.
So tell me this. So you went to school and you graduated from?
So I graduated from Valencia High School. In Valencia High School, I started in 2014. I graduated in 2018. And in that time frame is when I joined FFA my freshman year. And, as you just kind of go through your freshman all the way up to your senior year, there's different levels of ag classes that you take, and you just kind of learn a whole lot. And that's where I really got started from FFA.
Tell me this. I think we had in discussion and talking about this, your family, there's a history of your family being involved in this.
Yes. So I'm actually a fourth generation FFA member. So, the organization got started in 1928. So my great-grandpa was an FFA member, and then my grandpa, he was an FFA alumni as well, and then he actually went on to get his agriculture degree at New Mexico State University, and then went back to Cuba and taught. He was an FFA teacher there.
Okay. That's
and
cool.
then my grandma, she was a chapter sweetheart, and they were like the white jackets,
Tell me what the sweetheart means.
So
this was probably what year do you think? Somewhere in the 50s?
Probably in the 50s, I think.
Okay.
50s or 60s is when she was in high school.
Because you really didn't have females involved in FFA at that time. It was typically more the males with the chapter sweethearts. I'll let you tell about that.
Yeah, so I'm not too knowledgeable on chapter sweethearts because they are something that
was phased
you don't
out.
necessarily. It is phased out, but it did kind of come whenever they started allowing, from my knowledge at least, where they started allowing women and females into the into FFA.
Into the chapter.
Right.
Okay.
And then they would vote for chapter sweethearts, and they wore the white sweetheart jackets.
That's cool. So your grandfather, your great grandfather, your grandfather, your grandmother,
and then both my parents.
Both your parents and yourself. So you were grown up knowing a lot about FFA. So,
yes.
And your ag life, that's what drew you to it. It truly is an ag program, right? A group.
Yes. So it's called Future Farmers of America. That's what FFA stands for. When you're doing it, your freshman year, you have to be enrolled in an agriculture class. And so you kind of learn all these different processes and everything that goes into agriculture, and you learn to kind of advocate for agriculture as well. And they call it advocate.
Advocate?
Yeah.
Advocate for ag? There you go. Oh,
But yeah, you just learn so much, like even just farm to pasture or farm to plate type deal, or pasture to plate. Sorry.
well, and we talked about this also just when we've chatted that originally most everybody was involved in agriculture in some way. They had some land, they grew their own food, and as things have changed over the centuries, literally, not everybody even has land, and so the knowledge of where their food comes from, where their meat and vegetables and fruits and just everything, the processes went away. Um,
hmm
this is something that teaches kids they don't have to be growing up on a farm to be in FFA, correct?
No, you don't have to be in a farm to be involved in FFA. Really,
Right.
if you're looking for, there's stuff for everybody there in FFA. One thing that we did to actually promote kind of growing your own food is there's this program called Ag in the Classroom,
Hmm.
which is really cool because it allowed us to go into these classrooms. We're high schoolers at the time. So we would go into elementary schools and we would have like these packets for teachers to like read to their kids ahead of time. And then we would plant like this little bean sprout or whatever plant with them, and then they would learn to watch it grow, and they had like lesson plans. And but it's just reaching out to the community. There's a lot of community service involved while I was in FFA as
Uh-huh.
well, which
That's,
was a
I actually looked
blast.
up it on the FFA site, and it basically gave the definition that it helps members prepare for careers in agribusiness, agri-marketing, science, communications, education, horticulture, production, natural resources, forestry, and many other diverse fields. So it reaches a huge genre of different things,
Yeah, and it actually helped me for my career field actually.
which
So,
is
which is wildlife, and it's what I'm going to get my degree in. Is I'm gonna have my bachelor's in wildlife biology, and I'm also getting my associates in agriculture, which that's cool. But because of that, of in FFA, they have different contests called CDEs, which stands for Career Development Events.
okay.
And so this kind of lets you sample out all these different career fields that you don't necessarily have to like commit yourself to, So, for example, I used to judge entomology, and that's the study of bugs.
Right.
And I mean, you could go in and you can make a whole career being an entomologist. You can take that step one step further to college. And for me, I really kind of specialized in wildlife, and that was my calling in FFA for the CDE competition. And I would go in, and what you do is there's like this written test that you do, and
Okay.
then you go through and you try to know all these different names of wildlife, and it's just really your overall knowledge of wildlife. And it did prepare me. So whenever I did come here to Eastern, um, some of the stuff they were teaching me in like my wildlife classes, I already knew because of
You had
FFA.
been exposed to it, so you kind of
Right.
had a jump on the game.
Right. I mean, I had 4 years of studying and practicing, so it was very much, it helped prepare me so
Well, and I
much.
know, like for entomology, we actually use a crop consultant at the farm that
Right.
comes out a couple of times a week and rides his four-wheeler through the fields and just checks the plants closely for aphids and different things that are going to damage that crops. So that goes back into the picture of that's a piece of it that helps with providing food to the world. If you have crop damage, you're not going to produce as much.
Right.
So,
And even during, if you're doing the entomology CDE, there's a test portion, and you have to like figure out like, okay, this pest is destroying all these fields. Now, how much water would you dilute to spray a certain
exactly.
chemical so it's safe? And like, I mean, you're doing all this math, and it's just stuff that prepares you for the real world.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize where their food comes from. And also, with it being grown in the US, there's regulations and restrictions on pesticide use and things that don't come from other parts of the world because they aren't under the same restrictions. And so, our food safety. And
Right.
I always look on the packages to see if it was grown in the US. And hopefully, we
Yes.
have people that are involved in that.
Yes. And when you're in FFA and you're taking those agriculture classes, you
Mhm.
do become agriculturally literate, and you just learn to look at food labels, how to read them, knowing where your food comes from, knowing the difference between like organic, and sometimes it can say organic, but it could still have a few exceptions. And,
Yes.
you just really learn where your food comes from. I mean, there's a small percentage of Americans who think chocolate milk comes from brown cows.
And that's something we kind of you laugh about, but it's
Yes,
true.
it is true, and it's just kind of going out there and, like I said, you advocate, right?
Right. And you told me we talked about this a little bit on where our beef comes from.
Hmm.
right? If it's packaged in the U.S., I'll let you tell on this, and this is something that you dealt with in ag, right? It
Yeah, I remember actually when they were like talking about all these different bills, and my ag teacher was up in arms about it, understandably. But basically, if your beef is maybe in Brazil, but it's packaged in America, they could put American made on it.
so it's labeled as U.S. as long as it's butchered and processed in the U.S.
As far
And
as
a
my
lot of people don't
understanding,
realize that either.
yeah.
So there's a lot to educating yourself
And you
about
do
your food
learn
and
in those ag classes different bills and things that affect agriculture. I mean, there's so much, even just ordering one steak or piece of broccoli, even. There's just so much work that goes behind that one piece of steak or that one piece of
the
broccoli.
traceability, and then it's
Yes,
tied back to what was used on it to grow it and
right.
things.
Because that cow had to eat something. That cow had to start getting milk at some point. You know, I
Right.
mean, there's just so much that goes into it when it's a calf all the way till it's meant for,
Just till it's basically a steak on the plate.
yeah.
I mean, that's the truth. But I have a friend that lives in Dallas, and a big ice storm hit, and she started talking about it was so scary to walk in the store. There was nothing there. The shelves were like slicked after 4 days,
Hmm.
and I thought that was probably a big wake up for call for a lot of different people. And I think during the COVID epidemic, a lot of people got more involved in growing their own foods and container gardens and
Yeah, I really feel
things.
like even in America, people are after COVID, people kind of realize like, oh shoot, like our food does not necessarily just come from Walmart or something
Right,
like that.
right.
They get it from somewhere because there were food scarcities and things like that of that nature. So, I think, and I'm not saying it was a good thing, but it was almost like a wake up
It
call.
made an awareness
Yeah,
in people's mind of
definitely
getting
made an
back to some of the
awareness
basics.
that like,
There's a lot of other things you can participate in FFA. It doesn't just have to
yes,
be about the crops themselves. You do quite a bit of learning different skills on public speaking, correct?
yes. Public speaking is a huge thing in FFA. I mean, when I started FFA, I probably couldn't be talking to you right now this confidently. I couldn't walk in a crowd of five or more people without getting, stage fright, which
Hmm.
is fine. But in FFA, you don't have to necessarily specialize. I mean, there was this one event we did, and it was 2 days worth, and there were probably about 20 different sessions all crammed in, or like workshops type deals. And a few of them were learning how to be a public speaker, and you just learn all these skills from everybody. And, when you're there, you make all these friends from all around the state. I mean, I've even made friends because there's a national FFA
Okay.
convention that they put on. And when you go there, I mean, you make friends with even national officers. There's one now that he's a news anchor in Texas.
And just like you said with your wildlife, whatever you do, you may be doing a lot of public speaking. And I know when you walked in the station, you put your hand out, you introduced yourself, you looked me in the eye. That's not skills. I think that comes from FFA.
Right.
That public speaking and probably you becoming an anchor. This wasn't your field of study,
No,
but you nailed an anchor job
no. And FFA will
first semester.
definitely push you out of your comfort zone,
Right.
which is a good thing. But, it's scary at first when you're 14 years old, 15 years old, but it pushes you. And there's so many challenges that come with it, but it overall makes you a better person because, life's not going to be easy. So when you're faced with these challenges, and they're real world challenges that you just face in FFA,
Right.
I mean, stuff happens. Like I would show animals, Um, I remember one night a terrible dog attack happened, and half of my flock of chickens
Oh,
died. And so you just learn how to deal with all these problems. That's not necessarily going to happen
yeah.
to you in FFA. Hopefully, it doesn't.
Hopefully it doesn't, but
Hopefully, it doesn't. But as you're doing and taking on all these responsibilities, you also learn so much from the heartaches and the
just just
challenges
just
that come with
challenges
it.
of life.
Hmm.
Well, you also talked about, so there's other things. Let's talk a little bit about the judging aspect and tell us what there's different things that you can judge. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I was judging wildlife, like I said, but I mean, there's such a huge range of things you could judge, like entomology, like I said earlier. You could judge meat, which I
Okay.
know someone who made a career out of it. One of my friends who I had FFA with, meat
Okay.
judging.
The different qualities of meat.
Yes, there's poultry judging, land judging, public speaking contest, knowing the FFA creed, which is really just, giving back to the community is what the creed's about, kind of.
Basically the values
Values of
of the
FFA.
membership in of what tell me, I've lost the word for it, but your group is called
A chapter.
your chapter.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's the local chapters. And there are some middle school chapters, but it's usually mostly high school
Okay.
chapters.
And that really becomes almost a fraternity or a sorority. I mean, that's your people, that's your group,
Yes.
that's your friends, and not only is it just for this area, but like you said, statewide and nationally, and
Yes.
you make friends
You make lifelong
and
friends.
you learn and help each other and grow through
And
that.
everyone's so friendly in FFA. I mean, of course, not every single person you meet is going to be your friend in FFA, but
No, but
it almost feels like that, you know? It's
at
kind
least
of
you have a
surreal.
commonality with them. If you see them with the ag
Right.
jacket on, you know they're one of your people,
Right.
basically.
And see, you don't have to be ag based. One of my best friends back at home, I made him join FFA when we were going to high school together, and he started judging, and I mean, he loved it, you know. And he didn't have land, animals, or anything like that, but I mean, he still thrived there and learned skills,
Okay.
you know.
And then also a component is community service as well. You do a lot of things to give back to the communities, correct?
Yes, FFA is always looking for community service. And there's certain amount of hours that I think they also have to complete. But I mean, you have
Okay.
so much fun whenever you're doing community service. You get to meet all kinds of cool people. You get to help different businesses out or things of that nature. You know, we would go to the old folks home, which actually my grandma went to one of the old folks home that I helped do the landscaping
Okay.
for. So, you know, you get to see that payback
Right.
almost like, oh, look, grandma, you can enjoy this nice view
Well,
now.
and not only that, but you get to have young kids around you, and just lots of times on a bad day, giving back does a lot more for me and puts me in a better mood than I get a lot more out of it than what the person
Yes, it
that you
feels
help. It feels good.
it feels good. It's a very feel good organization that,
Okay.
you know, it's hard work, but who doesn't want to work hard and get that reward, you know?
And there are scholarships and things, right? What do you win if you win a judging contest? And then I know you compete individually and also as a team. Individual awards or scholarships, or
Yeah,
how does
there
that
are
happen?
individual awards. So when you compete in CDEs, it's basically this big competition statewide. And so all these different FFA chapters from across the state are going. Ours is here in New Mexico is held in Las Cruces. And so everyone goes to Las Cruces and they put on this huge competition. So you compete as
Okay.
teams and you also compete individually at the same time. So like you could, example, get first, but your team could get like sixth or
Okay.
something. But if you get first, I mean, New Mexico State University, they usually offer tons of scholarships for
And that
kids doing that. Like,
very nice.
congratulations, you got a $2,000 entomology or wildlife scholarship, you know,
Just from
just for doing that.
doing well in that.
Yes.
And you also have the bragging rights. And if you're like me, when you're in this type of area
Right.
of ag schools, you know, those bragging rights are, you're very competitive and
Oh, yeah. My
a
grandma
lot.
actually won first place in livestock competition when she judged back in the day. So,
How cool is
yeah,
that?
my dad got second for
And she
wildlife,
probably
I believe.
still is bragging about that on occasion.
I think they gave her a pin whenever she got hers. So I want to say she has like a pin
Okay.
reward. And then whenever you're an officer, because there's different positions you can have in FFA, right? And like you get pins for doing different things. Like I was vice president for 1 year, and that's like the highest position I held. And I got a little plow pin, which I'm pretty sure is the vice president. If not, I got the wrong one. And you know, like on the FFA logo, there's the owl, and that's the advisor because they have wisdom.
The wisdom.
They're older than everyone else.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have a little more seasoning.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Well, and that leadership, you go into some of the state offices or national offices, and I know there's businesses that they'll seek those individuals out because they've already learned the leadership skills that come from running a business or being in a managerial
Yeah,
spot.
definitely. You learn how to
So-
run so many things. Like one thing I did is I put on a Christmas parade. You know, you have to arrange a float and talk to all these different people and talk to businesses to see if they'll help donate or sponsor, you know.
And those aren't
so,
easy things to ask
right,
for me.
right. And so
But-
you just learn those skills of communications and things like that nature. Even like Robert's Rules of Orders, I was parliamentarian also at one point. And so I made everyone in our chapter learn Robert's Rules of Orders.
Which teaches you how to conduct a meeting. And that's
Yes.
actually used in legislative and other events and
Yeah.
corporate meetings and business meetings.
And one thing I actually did get to do, which most high schoolers don't, but I feel like because of FFA, I was able to go out there and do this, is I actually started a bill to make a New Mexico FFA license plate.
Very nice. Because we don't have civics in school anymore.
Yeah.
Or most don't.
Right.
Which actually teaches you how government functions and how you do pass laws and
Right.
things.
And when you are in that ag classroom, you learn about different bills that affect agriculture,
Sure.
So I mean, it kind of just ignites that spark in you. So I reached out to my House representative and I got it passed on the House floor. That's when I met the state president at the time. I'm still friends with her to
Very
this
nice.
day. um, you know, it's just lifelong friendships. And like I said, how many high schoolers are really out there passing bills or talking to their
Or
state
even have a clue of
representatives?
how you even start that.
Right. And so
So,
FFA just gives you that opportunity.
so very broad. We don't have just a ton of time, but I want to touch base with FFA kind of goes hand in hand with 4-H. And
Yes.
4-H does a lot of projects similar to FFA. So showing it at county fairs, and it's fair season. So,
Yes.
and it's not just all about the funnel cakes and the hot dogs and all the food that we
Yes.
we eat.
Fair
But-
season is so much different for FFA and 4-H members. So I originally started in 4-H. I'm a 4-H alumni as well. And I think I started in like third or fourth grade. And that's when I got like my chickens I paid like $1 from them at the feed store down the way.
right.
And I showed at the Bosque Farms Fair, went to the New Mexico State Fair, and I was able to do well with my chickens. And so that's when it really like my show business, or I call it my show
Your
business.
show business.
Yeah, that's when my show career, I guess,
Okay.
really started going. Um,
And truly,
I took it all the way to my senior year.
you take care of something.
Yeah,
So
and
people
that teaches you
show
responsibility.
the animals that you can show. There's also crops and other things. Well, you don't show it, but you can enter it in the fair.
Right.
But as far as animals, what all can you show?
You can show chickens, you can show goats, lambs, market steers, breeding heifers, which are beef,
Okay.
dairy heifers, which I got into showing later as well, chickens, rabbits,
I think
pigs,
pigs, right?
swine. Yeah,
Okay.
can't show
And you
swine.
start with that animal from the time it's a little critter, right?
Yes,
And you have the hopefully, if your parents aren't doing it for you, the goal is you care for that animal from the beginning all the way through.
yes. Every FFA member should be caring for their own animal, unless you get like sick or injured or something like that. But it does teach you that responsibility, and it kind of how much care you put into it is what you'll get out of it.
Okay.
So there's a component whenever you show, it's called showmanship. And whenever you're doing showmanship, it's not necessarily how great your animal looks,
Okay.
but it's how you work with your animal and how much you know and your knowledge about that animal, which I think is a great component. Because, I
Definitely.
mean, for especially steers, you get into that part of the showing world and people can pay up to like 10 grand, 20 grand for a beef steer, for a market steer.
And not all families, I mean, obviously not the majority of families can go and spend that
Right.
kind of money.
And then there's some people you can spend $200 on a steer, and sometimes they'll take the cake. They can be the winner. But that showmanship also just gives them that opportunity to compete against those people who do have that.
And you're not dealing with the genetics and things of the animal, but truly show how you've worked with them and your
Right.
the care for them and how you do that.
Right. And when
So,
when I went on to show at the New Mexico State Fair, especially when I got a lot older, I won Grand Champion Poultry 3 times with my chickens, which
very
I
nice.
mean, I probably paid $2 a piece for those chickens as little chicks,
Uh-huh.
I mean, I paid a little bit more to get them from somewhere a little nicer, but I mean, it's still not a huge price to pay.
Tell me how somebody would find out about getting involved with showing at a fair. They
Uh,
probably need to join FFA
You'd probably need to join FFA or 4-H.
4-H.
I mean, you can show an open division, but kind of junior and getting that real fun competitive side of it, you would probably need to be involved in 4-H or FFA. You could talk to your county extension agent or your local FFA chapter and see if maybe, like if you're in high school or something, if you can try to join it somehow, or especially 4-H. It's all the way from like kindergarten to senior year, I
Okay.
think.
And so even if you don't live in a rural area, possibly you could still have chickens or rabbits or something that you could
Right.
that you can show
I mean,
in the
there's
fairs.
almost in every city ordinance they allow you to have a couple birds. I know they have some against roosters, but you don't necessarily need roosters to show. You can do some hens.
Okay.
So
And there's a financial part of this. If you get into the sale, if your animal is judged and is one of the better animals, then you can actually have a financial reward of a sale and people bid on that animal, correct?
yeah, and you get to meet so many people doing it as well. I actually met the now current governor of the state when she was just a senator, I believe, or House representative. But she ended up buying my chickens. I had like an hour conversation with her. I had no idea who she was at the time,
N-
but she did end up buying my chickens from me. And basically, whenever you do well with your animal and you get like the best of show or reserve a show,
mhm.
which is second place, you get to go onto these auctions, and people will give you some good money for them.
Very nice. Very
And so
nice.
it helps give back to the community.
Cool. Well, it's definitely something to explore and knowing where our food comes from and the involvement of young people in a really great organization. I'm a big proponent of FFA and a lot of skills, a lot of life skills that you use for a
Yes.
long time. So, Josh, really appreciate you being here with
Thank you.
us, and you'll be back at the station, right,
Yes,
this
ma'am.
semester.
I plan
So
to be.
come
Yes.
back, and that school starts here
Yes.
in a little while. So come back, and then go from there. So I'm excited to see where you go, and I know FFA definitely gave you a good step up or a handout or a hand down or however you
Yes.
want to phrase that. So
It
thank you.
it did. I have to give FFA many thanks to getting me to where I am today.
Well, thank you again for joining us
Thank you so
and
much for having me.
definitely. And to all of you out there, thank you for watching. We will see you next time on You Should Know. Cheers.